Do it, do it, do it, man. Because this is gonna be so awesome if we get it right.
It's a big movie. It's a really, really big movie. It's been quite challenging.
I have not worked on a movie this good, that I've been this excited about, that has had such talent.
My experience on The Incredibles has been amazing.
Yeah, baby!
That's some good barbecue.
It's so much work. Each shot everybody has to get behind it. You have to have whole meetings about one part of one shot sometimes.
Yeah. That'll work, yeah.
But we gotta get this stuff to Sim, to lock for Sim.
This is much cleaner than it was before.
She's not that ugly, right?
It's pretty ugly, too.
You think you can top that? Okay, ready?
On Finding Nemo, I think there were roughly 22 sets. On this film, there's over 130 sets and 180 something lighting setups.
All our films are challenges. There's always something. We don't know how we're going to do that, but the number of challenges on this film, you know, and the scale was turned up a few notches.
Every single thing that you see on screen has to be creative.
Chairs were built, the rugs designed, the wallpaper, down to the light switches.
Designed and built and shaded and lit and animated. It's every single thing. I mean, it's whoever thought about making movies like this was out of their minds.
There's a new one I'm working on. This is called The 800-Pound Gorilla. He's big, he's got red hair. He likes to scream in the morning. He's the 800-pound gorilla making this movie.
That is not what we're doing. Well, you're throwing potted soil on our fat guy, and no one has ever argued with the fat guy.
Brad and I met at college. We were in the very first year of the character animation program at CalArts.
His buddies were directing a lot sooner than him because he's a handful.
He's strong coffee, but I like strong coffee.
We're showing him stuff in the art review, you know, and he said, "Hey man, I feel like I'm at a smorgasbord and all you guys are offering me is bean dip."
Yeah, I mean, he's a madman. He's great to work for.
I always looked at Brad and said, that guy's great. That guy's going to be the best of all of us.
I'm in the air, you know. God, we're on the journey now, baby.
He's very energetic, very charged, and probably one of the most passionate artists I've ever met.
When John Lasseter, Steve Jobs, and Ed Catmull talked to me about coming up here, they said, we're worried about becoming complacent. We want you to come in here and kind of shake it up a little bit. For them to ask me to do that when they'd had nothing but successes was amazing to me. Hello, I'm Brad Bird.
You're welcome aboard.
Do you know Sarah McCarthy?
Oh, Brad!
How are you?
How was your trip up?
Good.
It's very exciting to have you here.
Oh, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Brad to Victoria.
Well, the Indians, the American Indians, used to, when they killed the buffalo, they didn't just eat the meat. They ate the meat, they used the hide, they used the bones for arrowheads. They used every part of the buffalo. They didn't waste anything. So when I say use every part of the buffalo, it means managing everything to get the most out of it.
The energy at this studio, when Brad started bringing these people in and started making The Incredibles and stuff, it was great.
There's a great group here, and it's a protective atmosphere, but it's challenging too. It's like weightlifting. Not only are you sheltered from the storms, but you're also fed well and encouraged to pump up. I don't know exactly when I came up with the idea for The Incredibles. The first drawings that were done over 10 years ago.
I remember I had a stack of drawings and Lou had a bunch of paintings, and we went over to Brad's house. I'd never been to his house, and I thought it would be kind of fun. What if we made it like a slumber party? So Lou and I dressed in our pajamas, and I had a big knapsack.
I realize now why Brad brought up a core group of people, knowing we've never done 3D as well, but having kind of security of people with him that are learning the process as he's learning it as well.
You can be on the best project in the world. It's got the biggest budget. It's going to be the big thing. That means nothing unless the journey making that film is fun.
Yeah! In this corner, John Walker representing Cold Hard Cash. In this part of the arena, Lou Romano, artistic idealism. In the middle, representing all factions, I am.
The idea to make Bob less bald came up. I got angry because I thought, well, we've had him like this for 3 years and now it's a problem. I hate that because everyone hates it, but they're still going, well, okay, we can make this work. And it's like this, it's all right.
Okay, all right.
It's like that. That's what it's become. I felt really strongly about it. I didn't want that design to change. We tried hair on him, more hair, and he looked like a jerk.
Now, the kind of verve that we've shown here today should be in all of these reviews. The quick gathering of material, the chutzpah, the moving forward, getting this stuff done.
This is John summing it up for all of us.
Feeling and push through the rest of the show.
A lot of times I'm very clear on what I want, but there comes times where I'm not totally sure that my way is the absolute best way.
Great thing about Brad. He'll take good ideas wherever they come from.
He freely admits that he makes mistakes, and you really have to admire someone who can do that.
He asks you. He wants to know what you think.
Make it okay for people to challenge an idea or two. The good ideas can withstand it, and the weaker ideas fall away and make room for something.
He has influenced the way we want to work stylistically, being able to push things more, merging the worlds of hand-drawn and 3D.
One of the biggest, I think, breakthroughs conceptually about this film is that we've spent so much time trying to give the animators controls that were native to their 2D knowledge.
Wow, you can do this stuff in 3D. I can move the camera over here if I really want. If that's a better composition, I can do that. Now, he's thought these story panels through, and he knows exactly what he wants. But there is something thrilling about once you see it in 3D and you got what you want. But if I move the camera over here, I got something better.
We knew we were making a different kind of content of movie with a different kind of crew, a different kind of director. We like to think we're blazing a new trail with each show. Every day has felt kind of like a new adventure.
When we started this project, it was all just on piano, and everything I did, all the themes I did were on piano, and Brad would come down and listen to them, and we would get his reaction just based on the piano mock-ups. The Incredibles score is really about things exploding and people hugging.
So it's those two elements, sort of the mundane and the fantastic, kind of sharing screen space. Those notes make up this movie, like Helen being in the bad guy's base in her super suit, and she can't help, when she passes in front of a mirror, stopping and kind of checking out how her suit's fitting with that very critical eye that women have on their own bodies.
Whenever I go to see a movie that I've worked on here and it's complete, and I'm sitting there in the audience and I say, oh, there's my shot. Oh, I should have pushed that more. On this film, they really pushed me to push myself, especially in the Bob and Helen argument I think I got pushed more as an animator than I've ever been pushed in my life. And I really appreciate that they felt that I could take it to that next level of like, you know, really polishing it and really pushing the mouth shapes, pushing the expressions, pushing the eyes, and pushing that organic softness in the face. All these things that later when I look at my shots, inevitably I say, I should have pushed that more. And I think this time they made me push it to that place where I really want to be.
Tony Fucilli, Steve Hunter, and Alan Barillero. Each of these guys brought something special to the table.
The dynamic between the three caballeros, they created an amazing team of people, and I think they really complement each other.
To the caballeros and their head, Bustamante. Yeah. Really what animation is capturing the essence of something and putting your own spin on it. We're doing a movie that absolutely could be done in live action in terms of telling the story, but it couldn't tell it this way. We are totally taking advantage of the medium in terms of pushing the expressions and pushing things to a degree that it would look silly in live action.
What we were able to do is take this brilliant filmmaker, take him and put him into a medium that he has never worked in before, computer animation.
It took me forever to figure out what to look at because you would have the person walking through the scene, intersecting his body would be a dummy of another version of the person with clothes on. And you're just going, is this the film? You know? And they go, oh, don't mind the nakedness. We haven't simulated the clothes yet. Now I can look at this incredibly bizarre stuff and I can just kind of be okay with it.
Am I overdressed?
We are trying to take advantage of all the great things that character animation can do, which is caricature, which is capturing the essence of a person.
It's not about how realistic all this stuff looks. It's about the acting and what those characters actually are that makes them believable.
If we work together, you won't have to be.
I don't know what will happen.
Hey, we're superheroes. What can happen?
But the kiss, yeah, it's good. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that looks great.
I was making out with my mirror, Brad.
Yeah, it sticks a little bit. Yeah, just a little bit.
Okay.
That's good. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And that can help the accent a little bit.
They're very endearing. They're flawed, and they have, these quirks that are very human, so you connect to them, and they also have these powers that are really cool, so I can nerd out with them at the same time.
Show that last thing to Tone, okay? Okay. Thanks.
So you should be looking more at her face in the previous shot.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so just do that, show it to Tone, you got him.
Cool.
Nice job. All right.
Thanks.
How could any human being deal with Brad Bird other than Tony Fucilli? I mean, they're completely opposite, and they need to be. Because I go crazy with him. I can't. I don't know about you, but it makes me nuts. And Tony is like completely calm with him. He's just like,
I'm a fly. Well, what if I just lay down right now? How about that? How'd that be?
Brad can never get Tony in the morning to say anything.
What? What do you think, Tone?
Brad will prod him. He calls it prodding the bear. To be like, come on up and draw something on the screen here. Draw something on the screen. Oh. And Tony can draw beautifully.
I remember I was with Tony Fucilli once, and all he said was, Tigger.
Yeah, he's great because he's accepting of my mumbling and my sort of half thoughts and stuff. I'll just sort of say, whatever, and there'll be a key word in there, and I'll be like, yeah, man, Tony's saying that so-and-so, blah, 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 and he's right.
My hands will be closer together.
Well, I think that they're going like this rather than up.
that they have this acting room where you could film yourself and videotape.
Simple, elegant, yet bored. You will die.
The playwright sleeps to make him smarter because leading experts say Mozart makes babies smarter.
Just a little workout.
I always knew you were tough, but tricking the probe by hiding under the bones of another super? Oh, man! I'm still geeking out about it.
And then you just, why do you have to just go and stink so, you just had to smell so, stinks.
There's a real trick that we're going to have to somehow conquer on this film, and it's not an easy thing. I mean, we've done this talk in animation already. How do you show that somebody's strong, and yet something is genuinely heavy?
Yeah, there's a big push at the beginning of this film with Brad and Tony and Steve really getting us to think about weight, and by videotaping, I think it pushes you past what you would normally think, and it makes you more of a student of particularly weight. It's a great means to have, because everything we do is so labor intensive, it kind of gives you that improvisational first spark that then you can use to reference what you're going to use in your acting or in your action.
He would show animation where he didn't think the weight was very believable, and he had a real chip on his shoulder about this being very believable, so that you could feel the peril. Then he would show stuff like Hajira, the jaguar, pushing Mowgli up into the tree in Jungle Book. On one hand, you could say, oh, this is old school, we're the future and that's the past, that's traditional animation, but the physics of that are so exquisite.
The unsung heroes of this process are the technical guys, the TDs and technical leads.
It's critical to have people who can take the artistic and visual quality of what's required in the film and make sure that that is retained as it moves into the technical arena where the actual work is then accomplished.
Because they're kind of behind the machines that everybody uses, people don't think of them. Part of the reason people don't think of them is they do their job so well that things work marvelously.
And so the idea is that Frozone's kind of throwing out this beam of cold, and it forms these particle ice things, and eventually it forms the support and the surface that he can actually skate along, like so.
Frozo! Yeah! Wow, that looks cool. Oh, that looks way cool. Nice job. A round of applause. Excellent. The idea that CG films are machine-made somehow, and they totally are not. It's just an incredibly elaborate tool that is hand-controlled every step of the way.
When I came on to development, I mean, in development, the film is sort of in the boarding story part of the process, and you're sort of analyzing the boards and the story and trying to figure out what's hard, what isn't.
Trying to figure out how to get the movie made was how are we gonna do humans.
We have to make it possible both to make a large number of human characters that are not impossible to animate, but that also look good, that move convincingly.
Our audience looks at a human being in the mirror every single day. And if you don't do it just right, it won't be believable to the audience.
You know, Bob, a company
Is like an enormous clock.
is like an enormous Yes, precisely.
And we've introduced maybe a little more caricature in humans, whereas I think in a lot of other films, the humans tend to get natural looking, and the closer you get to a real human, it looks off, it looks weird.
Getting these people on screen in a believable, compelling way was sort of job number one. And then we could deal with, like, oh my God, how are we going to do all these explosions and, all these different sets and things like that.
To get convincing motion, to have skin sliding over bone. I mean, Bob's a big, muscly guy, so you got to see those muscles moving.
I love working on Bob. He's just, the way he's constructed, like technically, is just exquisite. Like, the model is beautiful to work with, and his design, like Tony and Teddy's design of him, is just fantastic. So he's just a pleasure to work with all the time, and whenever I have a chance to work on Bob, I just love it. Whether he's like just running around or whether it's like a detailed face, he's very expressive, is rich and detailed enough to carry him.
See? They're finally recognizing your talents. You're moving up.
Yes.
Honey. Oh, this is wonderful.
Yes, it is.
How is Bob feeling in the scene? How is Bob feeling in the sequence? How is Bob feeling over the whole movie? And it needs to mesh there. Now, Brad's job is to say...
You have to kind of work to keep the shapes more simplified.
Okay.
The corners tend to come up, and then come down and up again. And you just want to simplify those shapes. So then instead of like... like that, you can just kind of...
An explosive charge or something?
Yeah, it's...
Okay.
Boom, 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 boom. Like that. So that we have white all the way around the pupils. Eyebrows going like this. And then kind of... Ah! So it's like... Then we cut.
To be in midlife in springtime.
I did not come to Pixar to do a CG film. I was interested in coming to Pixar because they protected stories.
And what I always like about our stories, or the films that Pixar makes, is they're really fun and energetic on one level, but then the story, the underlying growth of the characters, that heart that's in our films, is what I really take pride in.
One thing I love about what Brad has done with the superhero genre here is to make the powers of the people and of the heroes involved mirror their characters. So Mom has got 3 kids and a husband who doesn't like his job, and she has to stretch in a lot of different directions. Violet, this body-conscious young teenager, has got force fields and can turn invisible. Dash is your 10-year-old Ritalin kid, and he has super speed. And Jack is a baby and is all just nothing but possibility. You don't know what he can do yet.
And what I love also about the story, and also how the story has developed, is it's got Brad Bird all through it.
And then there's the uncanny likeness to Brad and Bob. If you look at it, it's an exaggerated Brad Bird. If you look at Syndrome, it's an exaggerated Brad Bird. And then Brad does the voice for E because he's the only one who can.
If you repress, you depress, darling. To impress, you must express.
Shoot. The thing that amazes me about music is that in a certain way it's not specific, but emotionally it's completely specific.
It's crazy time! This is the part where everyone, the first time you hear it, and it's just kind of like everyone looks at you like, what are you thinking? What was that? And then you had to play it like about 8 times, and then finally people are like, oh, we still don't like it, but at least now we know what you're thinking.
Is this new technology gonna slow us down, cost more money? Is it more expensive for people down the road, or is it pretty much the same as anything else?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, we don't know yet. We haven't
Okay.
gotten it into lighting yet to test that.
Brad's doing his job to make it the best film that he possibly can make, and I'm doing my job to make sure we actually finish the thing, and we fight pretty openly, pretty much all day long, to make sure that neither one of us goes too far astray. Making new shots appear at this point is a difficult process.
If something isn't playing and you need to make it play, you can't just go, okay, I'll be silent here. You go, how do I make it play?
An animator can't create a shot.
Okay, to me the important part is getting the camera there and getting it animated so that the paperwork can be done.
I'm just trying to herd you toward the finish, you know? Just trying to get us across the line, man.
I'm trying to get us across the line in first place.
I don't tell him he can't have what he wants. I just tell him he has to wait a little bit. Whimsical.
But it is not
I know, I'm just
whimsical.
telling. I didn't say it was.
I am the least whimsical guy.
I didn't say it
Every
was.
part of the buffalo gets used.
Okay, well, I'll argue with you about Gooey Jack Jack. I won't argue with you.
Hey, did I not cut it?
You did. And
I cut it.
That's excellent. That was an excellent decision. One of your best.
Some of your pet things that you had the idea to do don't actually work, you know, because it defeats this and this and this. And if you are willing to lose this one thing that originally was such a great part of your pitch that everyone laughed at or loved, and you go like that, and all these things go, and they click together, you know, that's what you have to do. And you know, that's the organic part of the process. It's not a mechanical process. And this is why businessmen hate the film business, because when you're making a widget, you can measure it. Here's the mold, you know, it costs this much for ingredients. You put it on the line and you throw it out there. When you're doing a story, if you're really doing a story and not just repeating the last success, you're just, what the hell, you know, I think this will be cool. I hope, yeah, it sounds great. You know, I mean, you're gambling. You're gambling. God, it takes so long to put these things together, but when they're finally together, you're kind of shocked. It's absolutely done. I have no more things that I want to do or ideas. It's like you're going, you're tinkering, and then the door goes.
Making movies is not easy. It's a pain in the neck. You could do something 12 different ways, 150 billion different ways. It starts on the page first with the storyteller, with Brad Bird.
I gotta finish the script just so that we can get going on finishing the first pass.
Hey! We were just talking about you and the dialogue for the prologue.
Writing is really
And,
hard.
the part where Helen calls 911. Do you have anything written for that yet? Because I was just ad-libbing.
You have this white wasteland of the blank page. You know, there's nothing there. And you have to kind of just drag something into being. But once you get one thing into being, it kind of suggests another thing. And if you get two characters in a room and they start talking to each other, things start coming out. And pretty soon you're like, whoa, what's this? And it's fun.
As we start getting rolling in production, we gobble up those pages and we go explore in the sequences.
Could go in tight, see him tossing a few things, and then cut back.
Well, he'll be totally lit all of a sudden, and then the shadow will just whatever.
Okay.
We'd work on scenes and we'd have the scene awesome. From beginning, middle, and end in this one scene, it's perfect. It stands alone. The thing with movies is no scene stands alone.
It's not hard to find Mark Andrews in any crowd. He kind of sticks right up there. Mark's boards popped out like Mark Andrews pops out. He goes straight to a drawing. He knows what he wants to say and he says it. If you say, no, I don't want to go that direction, he's like, how about this? He's always got a new idea. He's always got another idea. If you shoot him down, he pops right back up again. He can't be stopped. He's a force of nature. I don't want to stop him, but I'm just saying it can't be done. You just want to render this footage like useless, don't you?
Story happens when you begin and all the way to the end of, the project. Everything's about the story.
Brad, he has a script that he brings up to the story department, and they, throw around ideas of what this battle will be.
And then the arm comes down, Bud screams, oh, the Omnibot's standing right there. The story pitch in animation is to give the director a sense of how the sequence is going to play. Cut wide as it swings and boom! So when you pitch into Brad, you have to get into character. You're gonna be a performer when you pitch, because you're selling this so that he can see it, so that he can really visualize it. We're overhead following him like a cat going after a mouse. So if it's intense, if it's an action scene, you want that director riveted, sitting back in his chair. As Bob gets the car over him as a shield. Sound effects. Got the Frozen going. I mean, the more you lay in, the better. So it's more feeling, is he getting out of it the storytelling that he needs to get. And then we just cut to a limit.
Well, it's big.
We make notes and get the bits right, the details of the action, of the blocking, of the story points. Once we nail that, then we go into filmmaking aspect of it.
Doing animatics is basically adding movement to storyboards. It sort of brings the reels to life very early on.
When I have an idea, I don't just see the business. I see shots. It's almost like another character in the scene is where the camera is and what is the attitude of the camera. And you can make the camera anxious. You can make it bored. You can make it theatrical and flourishy. And to me, that's like using language in describing a thought.
We give Andy all these parts.
A bit of the floor and a slight touch.
If it's a camera move with a pan, we don't know how long the pan's going to be for timing. Andy's going to determine that, really.
Push in on the inside so the two camera moves are...
Okay, all right.
And Andy's a great artist, and he will fill in, and it's seamless.
I think the most fun that I had was working on the 100-mile dash sequence. Brad has always said we have to have character-based action sequences, and a lot of Brad's discussions on 100-mile dash was let's just not do the cool thing, let's have that, but also, okay, this little kid is using his powers for the first time, what kind of stuff is he gonna do? He's gonna trip. He's gonna run through a thing of bugs and fall and cough one up. He's gonna do things that a kid would do in that extraordinary situation.
I'm alive! Yeah!
So Mark Anders and Ted Mathot boarded the scene, and then I get it. Well, I have to do all these dimensional camera moves through this forest, so I started drawing just basically these flats of trees, and then got them into the computer and did some camera fly-throughs of the forest, and got Brad in here and said, Brad, how fast is this kid running? And then Brad said, this should be a little faster, and then we settled on this one. So then these are drawings by Ted Mathot of Dash, just basically a run cycle. So I get that into the computer, and then combine the two to realize in true 3D the 100-mile dash sequence. Not another part of the film where you learn as much about the process as in story.
Going over sequences again and again and again and again and getting parts right, but still parts aren't right, and putting it on a shelf and coming back to it, and it's been a labor.
You feel like you've completed a long journey. It may not be fun to go, through the Gobi Desert, but it's kind of cool to say that I came out the other end. The reason to do animation is caricature. And good caricature picks out the elements that are the essence of a statement and remove everything else. It's not simply about reproducing reality, it's about bumping it up. One of the reasons I wanted Lou to be the production designer of this film is because he has a fantastic sense of flat 2D graphics.
It was really dictated by how far Brad would go with stylizing the characters and still have you believe that those characters could be in real jeopardy and have those real kinds of relationships.
It's not about looking realistic, it's about committing to a design and a character and the animation committing to that.
When I think of all the characters and their unique frustrations, that's what most appeals to me about the movie. You could really empathize with any one of these characters.
When we started on the film, we didn't really know what it was going to be. It was just, what's the best design?
Both Tony Fucilli and Teddy Newton are excellent character designers, and they come at it from two different directions. Teddy got involved very early on The Incredibles, and he's all over the film.
I usually don't just do drawings of characters. I'll try to come up with maybe a gag I could put that character in. It helps me kind of understand who the character is. And then their faces start coming out of that.
I think Teddy's collages have been a good source of inspiration. The boldness of the design we've continued to use throughout the movie.
I like calling them paper cutouts because when I do a collage, I like to just kind of use it as the colors or the textures. They were very quick and they could keep a very stylized shape. Whether it's that little hook on the end of Helen's hair, or it's Bob's dome-like head, or it's Dash's point to the hair, or Jack's little hair gives him sort of a spring, you know, just because the shape feels like it's kind of a bouncier shape than someone like Rick Dicker, where all the shapes are sunken, and Tony would really kind of flesh that out.
Tony comes at it from the point of view of an animator, somebody that has got to move things around, so he imagines a design dimensionally.
Bob originated with the drawing Lou did. This sort of Egyptian flat, cool drawing, kind of looked like a combination of a Greek god and Craig T. Nelson, you know, watering the lawns. The first thing Brad told me is, if you can get that to move, to work in 3D, I think we've got it. So the first thing I did was do some rotations on paper of Bob, and then did a head, an actual sculpture of the head.
One of the dramatic things that makes this work unusual and kind of otherworldly is there's all these things that really don't happen in people quite this dramatically, like this straight line down his nose. It's stuff you see, you see people that have something like that, but this is the way you would draw it if you're drawing it very quickly in a cartoon.
If you look at Bob's eyebrow all the way down his nose, there's a kind of a ledge there. If he doesn't make an expression, if he's got sort of a neutral face, it almost looks like a Roman helmet, kind of just, but then he moves around, it's fleshy.
Our characters don't have dentures, our characters don't have little hemispheres of white. They have teeth, and some of them have British teeth. They have very realistic teeth.
Well, we had someone actually take photographs of everybody in the studio who would be willing to let us shoot their teeth. And with that information, we were able to go in and do stylized versions of these teeth.
I love these characters, and they're there. I mean, I loved them when they were just line drawings, and now they're real.
I think the characters look wildly different from one another, but I think they all feel part of the same universe.
Yes, words are useless. Come. Come. That's too much of it, darling. Too much.
The thing that Brad did was do the voice over and over and over. When I hear that voice, it immediately conjures up a picture in your mind.
The voice and what he would do, the posture, with the cigarette holder, and then it kind of already gets you sort of in the range of where you need to go.
This is not the latest fashion. This is the earliest fashion. It will be the latest fashion a year from now.
The first drawings of E were a little more like Helen, and as if they were close friends, and they looked kind of alike, except one had a little more of an arty side to her. And we were kind of getting away from that because every character should sort of have their own unique identity visually. That's when we started experimenting more with sort of that androgynous E, the glasses, shorter E, all that stuff sort of came afterwards. Brad said he met Bette Midler once. This tiny little person had like the biggest personality in the room, and that was kind of what he wanted from this character.
E, to me, is a very small person that is very powerful. She has this way of walking into any situation and with seemingly no effort at all, completely blowing over it. She is the only one in the film that makes superheroes uneasy. They're used to being the most confident people in the room, but when they get in the room with E, suddenly they're flustered, they're a little off base, they don't know quite how to deal with her. Even though she's a fraction of their size, her sense of self is probably the most strong of any character in the movie.
There's just a lot in this movie. I mean, when we first saw the reels, I think people were like, oh, Lord, how are we going to
do humans, and how are they going to look, and are they going to be believable?
Brad wanted a very stylized human, and that's always tricky, finding your place on that realistic to stylized line that's both believable and compelling, but still cartoony and appealing.
It needs to not be disturbing, but yet still feel like it's alive, and that's a pretty tough thing to do.
There's two responses you get from TDs, typically. First is like, that's really cool, and then the next one is like, oh my Lord, how are we going to do it? They've all got hair, they've all got clothes, It's like, they've got 5 changes of clothing.
We have something like 95 costume changes, and not just t-shirts, but suits and shirts and ties and belts and pants, and all of them interacting with each other.
And they had to look like different kinds of material, and, that was huge.
We had to bring in a tailor, Maria, and have her train us on how to do flat pattern making. In my own experiences of sewing, I really didn't have to think about the extreme forms and how to cut patterns for characters with 13-centimeter waists. We measured everything you can imagine except probably the face and the fingers and the toes. We took all those measurements and then we would draft the patterns. And so after we create the mesh, it comes out all funny looking and puffed out, and we have to go through the process of running the simulator to relax it onto the body, and you just start plussing it by iterating the patterns. And once you go through that about 100 times, you usually end up something that you're happy with.
This is a hobo suit, darling. You can't be seen in this. I won't allow it.
And then they all have hair. Hair's hard. Computer graphics, there are hard problems. Water's hard, fire's hard, hair's hard.
Violet has this long black dark hair which has to move when she moves and move believably.
Simulation of long hair is just one of those, it's one of those problems that people start to freak about when you talk about it.
It just brought the production to its knees for a long time, where we kept trying and couldn't do it. And finally we had this summit where the big brain guys who run the simulator, the thing that makes the hair move, finally just sat across the table and said, well, John, I got to tell you, long hair is theoretical at this point. Whoa, time out, theoretical? The movie comes out in less than a year. What do you mean it's theoretical?
Certainly there were some moments of doubt, but everybody wants to believe that they can do it. And the question is, can you do it given the time that you have and the people that you have?
Long hair is really hard. What really happens is you have millions of hairs that are interacting with each other, and that's what gives it its shape.
Each hair likes to grab onto the neighboring hair and not move, or to carry it with, so that they all kind of move together.
You can't really do that on the computer. It's simply too much. We tried a lot of things that really didn't work and just looked silly. And when we finally figured out what the problem was, it was fine.
They pulled it off. It's beautiful. I mean, her hair moves in a way that we never thought would be possible. And, pop the champagne corks, clap everybody on the back, get a patent,
Okay, well, yeah, once we get this hair problem solved, we also have to do wet hair and wind in hair and, that sort of thing.
Officers, ma'am, Squeaker.
Bob is a superhero. He's muscular. You expect to see that musculature move in maybe not a realistic way, but in a believable way.
We had to build a skeleton. We had to put muscles on top of it. Those muscles had to be able to flex and bulge, and you had to be able to see them.
I mean, we do not have every bone in the body or anything like that. I mean, that would have been overkill. I mean, Brad wasn't going for hyperrealism.
This is a cartoon, and so we wanted to just hint at reality and not try to duplicate it. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of our overriding theme for designing these puppets.
Yeah, just as our characters are caricatures of human, our muscles are also caricatures of muscles.
The fine-scale detail really sells it as being a human and being realistic. Facial pores, facial hair, pimples. Brad and Lou were clear on from the beginning that he didn't want any of that. He didn't want that facial detail.
Subsurface scattering is a mechanism for adding translucency to objects and sort of modeling the intrinsic nature of translucent objects.
So we applied that same kind of physics of the light bouncing around inside the surface to all the skin of our characters, and that was kind of how we got there.
Having the actual material, the skin, feel organic and alive would allow us to get away with less of the, minute detail. All techno speak aside, what you really see is you see softer shadows. Intuitively, the material feels more alive because it doesn't feel like a hard plastic surface. It feels like light goes into it and transmits through it.
It's just there a little bit subliminally, and you may not even notice it in a still, but when the characters move in the light, it's part of what sells them as being alive.
I mean, it all comes together to kick up the believability a notch. It's like they're puppets, but they're alive. But they're puppets, but they're alive.
Just making it so that you can have everything fall into its appropriate place for the story and not draw attention to itself is a real challenge.
And I think you see it on the screen. I think you see it in the acting. I think, we made them a violin, and they play it. And that's pretty rewarding to me.
Universal Man. Everyone loves and hates Universal Man.
I'm trying to make an attractive teenage girl. And the problem is,
She looks like a jelly bean.
well, the thing is, what happened was we built a Universal Man to make all the men.
Yes.
And then we took the man and shaped it into a woman.
See? It's always the
And
man.
that's the problem.
It's always the man.
The men are
coming
messing
down on
things
you.
up.
The scope of the film is gigantic. We were trying to figure out what can we do. We have all these crowds to fill. We have all these secondary characters. We're running out of time and money.
We couldn't build each of them individually, okay, clearly. You've got hundreds, at least, of miscellaneous people. You can't build an individual model. But you still have to people the world.
Our approach was to try and make kind of generic guy that could then turn into, all the faces in the supporting cast.
Just Universal Man is all over the place. So, for example, the principal and Bernie are the same model. All the people in the stands are the same model. All the kids at the racetrack are Universal Men. The Underminer, he started from Universal Man.
We've taken him all the way.
That's amazing.
Way away from a normal proportioned person at this point. So I'm surprised it works at all. There's firemen, there's cops, bystanders, muggers, victims, miscellaneous supers, you name it. Oh, don't worry, you'll never see him up close. And then suddenly Bernie, who's a background character or a miscellaneous character, he's built from Universal Man. He's full frame, he's like right in camera, filling the frame. Oh yeah, except for Bernie and those cops and that mugger. After having finished this film, I believe completely in my bones, there's no such thing as a background character.
One of the challenges of the film was just the scope of it. We had a shot underwater, shots in a jungle, shots in a boring office cubicle, shots around the family dinner table, E's house, which is like Bauhaus meets Greek ruins. The variety of environments in this movie was enormous.
I'm not going to comment on what era the film is set in. That time.
This film is set in a sort of an alternate universe, mid-60s world. And it's meant to kind of evoke the futurism of that age, but in a sort of timeless way.
A lot of the early influences were definitely 60s architecture.
There was a belief that the future was firmly, in the grasp. If you were a kid back then, hey man, by the time I'm grown up, we're going to be going to work in jetpacks. That idea of this kind of technically believable future that never really quite arrived.
With the retro style of the film, we didn't want it to be purely as though we were doing a historical piece, but trying to design the future from the perspective of the 1960s. In the beginning, there were ideas of, how futuristic is the world? How futuristic is the home versus the island? Do they have flying cars? At some point, we realized we had to bring it into more of reality and base it in more of what people were familiar with.
A key idea of the film is to have the mundane and the fantastic, and have these things, kind of interlocked. So we also tried to make environments that were fantastic right next to things that were very everyday.
I worked really hard with Lou to try to get the house environment to feel very homey and familiar. We tried really hard to get sort of a feminine touch. Everything that is in the house was probably put together by Helen.
If everything was so fantastic and futuristic, there being superheroes wouldn't be as super, I think. So that when we do get to the island, what is futuristic about it is more amazing, I think, through the eyes of Bob.
It's because the emotions in the film are kind of broad and we are doing superheroes after all, that I wanted to have a really wide range of environments and still make it feel unified, like it was all one thing.
People sometimes say that film is a visual medium, but in fact, it really doesn't function without sound.
Sound, I think, is tremendously important to the success of a film. I think that a great deal of how an audience experiences a film is through sound.
The challenging thing about the animated film is that you have to entirely invent the world. So I had to fabricate more new sounds for The Incredibles than any other film I've ever worked on. I was amazed at the number of gadgets and devices and processes and vehicles in this movie. One of the key scenes in the movie involves these velocipods chasing Dash. None of us knew exactly what the velocipods were going to sound like, but we knew that they had to sound dangerous because that scene doesn't work unless we think that those things are about to chew him up and spit him out any second. The visual design of the velocipods is such that it almost looks like they have knives spinning around them. So I took that metaphor and ran with it a little bit, and we recorded knives being sharpened and sharp pieces of metal rubbing against each other. And one of the key elements, it turns out, in the velocipods is exactly that. It's a modified version of knives being sharpened. Foley is one of the ways that you can make sounds for movies, and it involves performers who are essentially like dancers, watching the action on the screen, walking in sync with the actors on the screen, or manipulating objects to make the sounds for the scene. Foley performers get very good at being creative with props. Maybe using a slightly larger prop or a more interesting sounding prop than the one that you see on the screen, but in the end, the sound is more interesting or enticing or useful.
I must be Mr. Sinclair.
How close was that overall?
That was pretty good. That was pretty good, didn't you think?
Yeah.
And the thing is I don't want to lose any impact, but I kind of feel like we're losing impact because everything's up.
Right.
You know.
The cliche is that sound sneaks in the side door to the brain, meaning that you don't really notice how it's affecting you. It's almost always the way you want it to be, because once the audience starts consciously thinking about, oh, well, that's a cool sound, or that's a powerful sound, in a way you've lost them from the story of the movie. So the trick is to make the sounds useful to the scene, but not make them so attention-getting that they snap you out of the dream of the movie.
Forget that 3-4. Just go right into 4-4. Yeah. 8 into 43.
I guess this is loud at the beginning.
It's loud. Well, no, mezzo forte.
Okay.
One more rehearsal. Like Wayne did for his child, save yourselves, Chris. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Most of the time, we're just there as color stuff. This movie, the whole brass, all the brass, French horns, trombones, tubas, everything, are so out front and so in your face, so...
Of energy that was here, creativity, use of pulling together so many things, the great atmosphere on the scoring stage.
I like things to be relaxed. I like to have a good time. I love what I'm doing, and I want everyone else on the team and around me to kind of feel that same way. After I met with Tim, I was like, this guy's going to help me convey that to everybody. Tim and I have worked on everything ever since, and I can't imagine working on something without him at this point.
This has been his and my, greatest opportunity to do something really, a great project
that we love, and it was fun.
I was looking for a specific sound, and it was kind of keyed into the design of the movie, which is kind of the future as seen from the mid-'60s, sort of. It's supposed to be kind of a period, but also timeless. So I was looking for the equivalent in the music as well.
When I first met him, he knew the style, the feel of the music that he wanted, quasi-jazz orchestra things. And which rarely, doesn't really happen that much more. It's usually, if it does happen now, it's kind of infused with techno elements and something very modern. But what he wanted was something just purely of that era.
Brad wanted that analog sound, that 60s kind of a sound. And brass definitely does sound better on tape than it does on digital. I've been mixing sound since 1946, and I got into film in 1964, I think.
There was a very different way of recording then than they do now. Now everything is so separated, and they do things, they don't have the orchestra all together. Dan is an engineer that came from the days when they used to do it what I consider the right way. You have everyone in the room, you have everyone playing against each other, they feed off each other's energy, and the pieces are so much more musical because of that. And that's why I work with Dan, because he gives me the sound that I know from growing up as a kid listening to music.
Great, Michael. That's a beautiful. I mean, I've got it all.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I think we should get one. Let's just do it again and we'll be done with it.
One more. Only one more. Yeah.
When describing lighting, the first thing that I like to talk about is just the functionality of lighting. And the best way to think about it in terms of a real-world example is that when you come home late at night, the first thing that you do is flip on the lights so you can see in front of you and see what you're doing. So we have lights that serve a functional purpose. Basically, they're working lights. All of the departments upstream, layout, set dressing, shading, animation, they all use it so they can see what they're doing. But if you were going to watch a whole movie with just these white lights, it'd probably be pretty boring. It's not very interesting to look at, and it doesn't do anything to really pull you into the world that the characters are existing in. So when we're starting to construct a scene, we don't even start with the white camera lights here. We just start from a blank slate. So where I like to start is with the key light. I knew that the center of attention would be here where the kids are, so I wanted to focus on that area, make that the brightest part of the composition. The other motivating light source is the big blue sky, and basically it serves as this big blue fill. And so that's the next thing that I add in. But the scene is still dark. It still has areas of black that are not really quite being filled in enough. So then we place in some light kind of bouncing up from these bright areas on the ground, and then there's our final scene. Brad, Lou, and I would get together and talk about what is the story point, what's the mood, what are we trying to support, or what are we trying to communicate. Bob in the office, obviously he's not having the best time of his life. We definitely chose for this to be the most monochromatic scene to show this is not the most joyful place for him, as opposed to later, when things are looking up for him, he's feeling a little bit better about himself. We have sunlight washing in, everything's golden to support that part of the story. And then here's Bob in the torture sequence where Syndrome has captured him, and the lighting is kind of a cool, sickly color. Like, it's not a very pleasing cool, it's kind of sterile. Here, of course, is how it was lit for the movie, but just giving a different example. What if we decided to light this warm and a little less contrasty? Obviously, approaching it this way, it looks more pleasant than what we really want to communicate, which is a high conflict, unpleasant situation. All of these things kind of go in to communicate the story point and help us to heighten the emotional impact of a scene using light.
Intruder alert, intruder alert.
Tools is a really interesting place. We do technology in service of a director's vision.
The Tools guys are amazing, but they are kind of the unsung heroes of a project like this because they tend to be kind of quiet and behind the scenes, a lot of them.
Studio Tools creates the software that the rest of the company uses for its creative work. We write the software that the modelers use to actually create the models, and we write the software that the layout people use to initially position the models in the scene, and that the animators use to make the models perform, and that the lighting people use to light the scene and then render the final result.
When they started to think about what it was going to take to do this film, one of the big issues was, oh man, we got humans. Now, the reason humans are tricky is you're one, I'm one, and all of a sudden we have expectations about how those humans are supposed to behave, how they're supposed to look, what their attributes are.
So we had to build some specialized controls for these characters that would let them do things that none of our characters had done before. A lot of stretching and morphing and getting mushed around. The characters had to be much more malleable.
We've got characters that got big hunkin' muscles. We got characters that have some mass. So when I start running,
showtime.
I want to be able to control that mass, finesse that mass, such that I can actually have a jiggle. So we started to look at what kind of jiggle controls we would have. We have characters that have supernatural arms, stretchy, movie, bendy kinds of things. So we started to look at being able to provide some things that would allow them to bend and bow the arm, be able to squelch that arm, which is really combining the idea of squashing and stretching. Fundamentals of animation, but now customized for humans.
Not only do they want big stretchy arms, but they wanted to be able to do things like completely flatten the character, and not just flat, but curved against, flattened against the inside of a curved shape, the inside of the cylinder here. And to make it a little bit harder, not only does she have to get flattened like that, but she has to do some acting when she's up against the wall, see her hair and her eyes moving around. So we wanted a program that would let the animators essentially distort space, kind of like a wormhole.
So The Incredibles is not only an incredible film, but it's an incredible technological feat as well.
If I did what they were doing, I'd be going, hey, I just made a miracle happen. Come on, little respect here. But these guys are quiet, and they just, they make these films absolutely possible.
You sent paramedics? The blast in that building was caused by bomb voyage.
Yeah! It's not my fault!
Robert Parr, will you have this woman to be your lawful wedded wife?
Cool, ready for takeoff!
Who's helping them out, huh?
home, but I work alone.
Hi, Tony.
Hey, you ran it, right?
That was totally wicked!
Hello, my name is Sarah Vowell, and I am a superhero. I think that's obvious. This is my superheroic lair. Behind me, perhaps you will notice my superheroic map of the United States autumnal wind patterns, my superheroic Courier and Ives print of the Lincoln assassination, the super heroic photograph of American and Canadian diplomats settling the Alaska boundary dispute in 1903, and one of my prized possessions, the superheroic hair of abolitionist guerrilla warrior John Brown. There is that old song, you know, John Brown's body lies a mouldering in the grave. It's not exactly true because some of him is decorating my wall. That was a Christmas gift from my sister. I got her a DVD player. So here we are in my office, as they would say on MTV Cribs. This is where the magic happens. Of course, on MTV Cribs, then a rapper will be, you know, showing off his solid gold sink or something. For me, that would just be my little iMac here, I guess, because this is what I do. So basically, being a writer is very visually exciting because all you do is just, you know, sit here and think things and then, you know, go like this. So I've been the voice of Violet for over 2 years now because these animated films take so long, I guess, because they're all hard or something. And so in the whole time that I've been Violet, I've been writing a book. It's called Assassination Vacation, and it's about the assassinations of Presidents Lincoln, Garfield, and McKinley, and tourism. So I go to historic sites having to do with those assassinations and then come here and, you know, write about them. Plaques get a lot of play. Let's just say, if you want to hear about plaques, I'm your girl. I mean, I hope what I do is make American history interesting, but I really do have to pitch it to people, you know. I really have to say, James A. Garfield really is interesting, whereas The Incredibles has been incredible for me because unlike anything I've ever worked on, my friends and family find it fascinating, you know, right off the bat, like, ooh, a family of superheroes, exciting. It's just been so nice to be part of something that I don't have to convince people to be interested in, you know. It's just so much more relaxing, really. I'm better with dead people, I discovered, more than the living, so I like writing about them. So here I am in the morning, I'm writing about the Republican Convention of 1880, and in the afternoon I'd get to say things like, the robot lost its claw. That is just something you never get to say when you're talking about the Garfield administration. You know, and like, the robot slipped! The robot's falling down! And it's just such a nice break from, you know, oh, Garfield's dying. I didn't know if I could be a superhero. I didn't know if I could act, and I certainly didn't know if I could act like a superhero. We can do it again if you want. So Pixar sent me this package of drawings of all the characters, and they were in their superhero uniforms, and they looked very sleek and very can-do and capable, and I really didn't know if I could pull that off. And then I come to this one drawing of Violet and all of her classmates at her high school. And it is just one shiny, happy teenager after another. They look polite and well-mannered and upbeat. And then I notice Violet, and she's wearing these baggy, dark clothes, and she has her hands in her pockets, and she's kind of hiding behind her hair. And that's when I know, that kid, I can be that kid, the gloomy, sarcastic teenager who, you know, just is so uncomfortable and in her shell all the time, especially at school. Like, I can fake that.
Don't be silly. You're beautiful.
I'm gangly.
You're growing.
I'm gangly and growing ganglier. I'm ugly. I have no curves. My friends are dorkier than I am. I can't talk, but my brain won't shut up. So how it happened, you know, that I got sucked into Pixar world was the documentary that the Pixar people heard about me and my father's homemade cannon on the radio. In radio, we paint a picture out of sound. It uses a lot of imagination, unlike this film crap. So anyway, since you're watching this film, then you must be a fan of animation, which is drawing. So I thought maybe I could like draw you through it. So, you know, I could put you there. Like, here's me. This is my dad. We load up my dad's cannon. We drive up into the mountains. We're shooting it off. One hiker's like, what? And I have this super long radio microphone, and then it's all loud, and the hiker says, that's quite the machine you got there. And he's talking about me and my long radio microphone. That's when I realized that my dad and I are the same person. Pixar did a test animation to that documentary. Weird. This is like a cartoon. Oh my God. Oh, there's smoke everywhere. It's like the 4th of July. Oh, beautiful forest. I really like Abraham Lincoln. He, to me, is a superhero. Even though I love Lincoln as a guy and I love him as a writer, the thing I love about him is that he actually did something, you know? Like, he took the, you know, biggest, most embarrassing, horrible problem this country has ever known, you know, what, like, slavery and what we're gonna do about it, and that we just, you know, for generations and decades either ignore or bicker about and no one does anything, and finally, you know, he ends it. Emancipation Proclamation. He did it. It's over, done, you know? And so I have a lot of pictures of him and prints and, you know, painting. And I also have a little collection of heads, Lincoln heads. There are a couple of bronze ones and this Lincoln totem pole, because there actually is a totem pole of Abraham Lincoln in Alaska. And so I have a souvenir of that. I think of them as my action figures. That was one of my first questions. Am I going to be an action figure? Not just because I, an inert person, would like to be an action figure once in my life, but also because I would love to be Super Aunt, and my nephew Owen plays with all kinds of action figures and toys, you know? And I would like to replace Tyrannosaurus Rex in his heart, I think. And so I have it on good authority that this is the Violet action figure. And so I'm seeing it for the first time, and because I have no superpowers, I'm gonna use scissors. Cool. Here's Violet, and it's invisible Violet. Violet, I have someone I'd like you to meet. Violet, Abe, Violet, Abe. I am the least super heroic person ever born. I can't drive, I can't swim, I'm afraid of heights, I have all these allergies, you know, pet dander, wheat, springtime, basically. But I am a perfect alter ego, you know, I am the perfect person to get changed into something, you know, grander and better than she is.
May I say that it's an incredible pleasure to be here?
Mr. Incredible, I think it's fair to say that you've been pretty busy with the release of The Incredibles. Why don't you tell me what it's been like with all this activity going on in your life?
Well, it's been fun. I mean, I didn't really do anything. I mean, they paid me a fee to use elements of my life story. Hey, we're still waiting for the check, by the way. But come on. It's a cartoon. It's a computer-generated, exaggerated thing. These characters don't look anything like me or my family.
Okay, you look really pretty great in this movie. I'm guessing not plastic surgery. I'd put my money on maybe special training?
No, it's a cartoon. You know, I mean, the filmmakers, they exaggerate things. They want to make things more extreme. But let's be real here, all right? I was never that out of shape. Ever.
Well, you know what they say, the camera adds 10 pounds. And I'm sticking to that. Now, have you been tempted to use any of your superpowers in your real life?
Well, all the time. Have I mentioned that we haven't gotten our check yet? But seriously, you can't hide who you are. It's in your blood. All of us are blessed with certain abilities. And I think the film shows that accurately. Even if they did exaggerate the weight part. That's what animation is. It's animated.
Nancy, I love that outfit.
Thanks. Elastigirl, good to see you. You look great. So, Elastigirl, now that you have finished filming The Incredibles, are you looking forward to getting back to your regular life and settling down a little bit?
Look, I didn't really make the movie. We just gave Pixar permission to be inspired by, I guess is a legal term, our lives.
Stop coming in the house. You sit down. You sit down. You people.
This whole movie is a cartoon, you know?
You know, we're so used to seeing male superheroes. What's it like, girlfriend, being a female superhero?
I presume you mean being a female in a game played mostly by men. Am I tough? Is that what you mean? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can handle myself in action. And I think that part of the film is accurate.
There were a lot of scenes that looked quite dangerous in this movie. How'd you pull it off?
You know, our story is about explosions and hugs. Warmth.
Not
love.
you.
Family.
Let go of your brother.
I just wish the filmmakers didn't feel the need to exaggerate everything. I'm not saying the film is libelous, but our lawyers are looking into it.
It is so cool to be here. And believe me, I know cool.
Frozone, good to see you, man. Great name, by the way. And of course, I know the answer to this question, but for those who haven't seen The Incredibles, what exactly is your superpower?
Let's just put it this way. When I tell someone to freeze, they do.
I bet they do. Now, I gotta tell you, you and Mr. Incredible, you play best friends in the film, right?
Incredible! Hey, Frozo! Man, I'm not in the movie. It's a cartoon. Do I look like a cartoon to you?
Kinda. But my question is, though, do you guys kind of hang out in real life together?
You calling this real life? This is TV, man. What was the question again? Oh. Do I hang with Mr. I? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I hang with him.
Nice of you to drop by.
Never heard that one before. Although not always with the utmost enthusiasm.
This is just sad.
A fire. We're close. Yeah, baby!
We're gonna get caught.
But we respect each other's abilities.
You can't run out of ice. I thought you could use the water in the air.
There is no water in this air. What's your excuse? Run out of muscle?
What's your next project?
Next project? The Incredibles is a movie. Frozone is real. Best way to see me in action is to be someplace that needs justice. You know how to spell justice. Just ice.
This is incredibly exciting.
Hold on.
For you.
Edna, thank you for talking with us. My first question is, you've created designs for people all over the world and now Hollywood. So tell me about a fashion fiasco that you would rather forget.
I'd rather forget the way I am portrayed in this movie. That is the fiasco.
All visitors are required to make a ring.
Go check the electric fence or something. What is it? Who are you? What do you want? Pull yourself together. I am not abrasive. Wouldn't you agree, darling?
So I'm going to go out on a limb here, Edna. What do you think of my outfit?
Skip down to the interesting questions, darling.
So, Edna, what was it like working with director Brad Bird?
I was paid to allow this fiction to go forward. Mr. Bird was unwilling to work with someone of my stature. I used to design for gods. Your suit can stretch as far as you can without injuring yourself. Virtually indestructible. And machine washable, darling. That's a new feature.
And rumor is superheroes are difficult to work with, true?
Superheroes are easy, darling. This is a hobo suit, darling. Now you can't be seen in this. I won't allow it. 15 years ago, maybe, but now...
What do you mean? You designed it.
I never look back, darling. It distracts from the now. Mediocrity is much more difficult to work with, and it is in such great supply.
These are scenes that we cut out of the movie.
That's right.
Why did we cut them out of the movie?
Because it had to be a reasonable running length.
That's right.
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like storyboarding for me is like rehearsing something. It's like putting it up on the stage and having things go out, and it very quickly becomes apparent what needs to be changed and what needs to be boosted. And I write certain things to be elaborated on. Like the final battle, I didn't even make an attempt. There were certain things that needed to be hit, but I knew that it was going to change so many times because those sequences are wild and crazy, and it's the kind of thing where you want to let story and a lot of people come in and throw their ideas around and then try to shape it. There are other sequences, like 100 Mile Dash, where I wrote every single thing that happened because I had the structure very clearly in mind. And then there were other ones that were kind of halfway, like Helen sneaking into the base,
right,
where certain things needed to happen, and certain parts of it I had very clear, but other parts we kind of built into it as we got in and explored it. And these are primarily ideas that are visual in nature, and I think that if you just pin it down to writing, you're limiting it too much. So it's the kind of thing that I think it would be analogous in a live action film that you would develop on the set. That you would see how somebody's walking and you'd say, try this over here, why don't you pick this up on that line? And the cinematographer says, hey, we could have a great shot to here, you know. So it kind of varied throughout the film, but because a lot of my training is in animation, I think I have it in mind where I want to extemporize and where I want to just figure it out in advance. Our original opening that went into boarding was not the way that I always pitched it. It was this idea that you saw the family first as people and then kind of gradually revealed that they were superheroes. So we started this thing at what we thought was a good American kind of way to start it, and that's him getting to know the neighbors at a neighborhood barbecue.
Young married couple, new in the neighborhood.
Right, and they're making jokes, trying to fit in, and someone says something to Helen.
A commodities broker. That sounds intriguing.
Well, it can be quite a challenge, but I gotta be honest, I eat it for breakfast. And what do you do, Helen?
I'm a homemaker.
This is based on a thing that my wife has had to go through. She worked in film editing, and when we first had our kids, there was a decision about whether or not she should continue working because she made good money. And I said, look, as long as we can bring in enough money, it'd be great to have the kids have a mother around all the time. And we made it work. But one thing that she noticed was that when you were talking about work, everyone could connect with that. Everyone got it, everyone, you know, hey, you're another fellow working person, isn't it, you know, this difficult and all that. Once she said that she, you know, was a mother, or that she worked in the house, their eyes glazed over and they kind of dismissed what she did.
Throw away my prime years trailing after a bunch of snotty kids? No thank you. Hello, no thanks. Hello, I want to do something with my life.
Wait a minute. You consider raising a family nothing?
I love the idea of a superhero defending, you know, being a mom. Yeah. So I like that moment, and I'm sorry that we don't have something like that in the movie.
The first time we realize these people aren't normal people is when he gets distracted by the argument Helen's having about motherhood and a professional life, and Bob chops off his own fingers.
Ow! Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing, is if you are invulnerable, relatively invulnerable, and you have to pretend anybody catches you being invulnerable, then you've got to go through a tremendous amount of problems to try to convince the world that you're not invulnerable.
Right.
And you have to pretend like you're injured when you're not. And I just thought there's another side to this superhero thing, you know, the burden of trying to hide, you know.
The secret.
Yeah.
I'm super. How you been, Mike?
Never better. Thank God for the weekend. Hey, everyone, I want you to meet my new neighbors, Bob and Helen Smith. Helen, Bob, meet Beth Anderson. Beth's a commodities broker down at Philippi Investments.
Oh, a commodities broker. That sounds intriguing.
Well, it can be quite a challenge, but I gotta be honest, I eat it for breakfast. And what do you do, Helen?
I'm a homemaker. Well, we only have one child, but she can be quite demanding, can't you, little boo-boo? You know, but motherhood is really much more demanding than I ever thought it could be.
Hey, Bob, I'd like you to meet,
Dick Schaefer.
Hey, Dick. Bob Smith. And this is my wife, Helen.
Pleased to meet you, Helen.
Hi, Dick.
Dick's thinking about buying a house across the street.
Well, everybody on the block loves that house.
Hey, everybody on the block has that house.
It was nice meeting you, Dick.
Hey, Bob, can you give me a hand chopping up these steaks?
Sure.
Throw away my prime years trailing after a bunch of snotty kids? No thank you. Hello, no thanks. Hello, I want to do something with my life.
Wait a minute. You consider raising a family nothing?
Well, it's fine if you're not suited for more substantial things.
Do you have any idea how much suffering would fail to take root if more people were just good parents?
Well,
What's more important than that? What kind of job? A job saving lives? Is that important? What about risking my life?
Well,
What about confronting evil on a daily basis for years so that people like you can sleep in safety and security? Would you consider that kind of job substantial?
I would. Yes, I would.
Well, that's the job I gave up for my new job, raising a family. And nobody's gonna tell me it's any less important.
I am so sorry. I meant no offense. What on earth did you used to do?
Ow! Ah! 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 Ah!
We can't wait. I'll take him. I'll take him.
You don't even know where the hospital is, do you?
No. Do you? You think anybody noticed? I'm sorry, honey. I know what this means.
A couple of months of bandages, scar makeup after that.
Well, we wanted a normal life.
Did we?
I think I found him.
Honey?
I heard it.
A burglar?
I don't know.
Well?
Okay.
Wake up and be sharp. You know you're sloppy when you're not awake.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, and honey, don't hurt him. We're starting fresh. And honey, don't break anything, okay? I just got the house organized.
All right already. I'm gonna try to enjoy this anyway. Don't move. What did you take? The silver? My grandmother gave that to
That grandma, what big teeth she has!
Syndrome.
Don't act surprised, Incredible. I mean, Mr. Smith. You didn't really think that getting a new life would absolve you of the last one, did you? You had to know I'd be back to settle accounts. And the best part is, they don't even know I've escaped yet.
You'll be back inside before they do.
Cool, huh? Little something I was working on when you sent me to the Skookum House! Good ideas never go out of style, so here we are. Hey, don't bother with 911, sweetheart. I've cut the wires. Just leave the scene, okay? You know, you really should remodel. This place would be nice if you opened it up. Oh, I like that. Don't you think? It's airy. It's airy. I believe I said you could go. Now don't try to help him out, you little scamp, and I'll let you live. It's not your fault. You just shouldn't have gotten involved with a superhero. Oh, no. Elastigirl? You married Elastigirl? Oh. And had a kid? It's a whole family of supers! Looks like I've hit the jackpot. And you are breaking the law, Mr. Incredible. You know supers aren't supposed to breed. Wait a minute. Forget it. He cut the wires, remember?
Do you smell gas?
Grab on.
I remember in one of the earliest meetings I had with the sort of Pixar, they call it the Brain Trust. It's kind of a small group of other directors and story people that look at each other's films. They talked about what is the thing that's worst about them going into hiding. Are they avoiding lawsuits, or are they avoiding, people coming after them? Villains coming after you that have a grudge against you, if they found out that Clark Kent was Superman and could track Clark Kent down to his home with his wife and kids, that's dramatic. That's much more visceral. The lawsuit thing is what I always had pitched, because to me that's a very mundane thing to bring down a superhero, which is kind of the whole vibe of this film is the mundane and the fantastic, But I recognized that the other one had a visceral value. So I came up with this Syndrome character, and the thing that was interesting about it was that everyone, when we did this sequence, responded to Syndrome much more than the villain that had been a part of my original pitch, which was this Zarek character.
Right.
We ended up going back to my original pitch, but the thing that we got out of it that was valuable was the villain.
Who's super now? I'm Syndrome, your nemesis at it.
Syndrome.
Don't act surprised, Incredible. I mean,
Mr. Smith.
I loved him invading their house. The idea of him showing up at the end of the film in the house was always in my original pitch. But the moment that I miss is using Bob as a battering ram to wreck his own home.
We took that moment and translated it into the film, but it just doesn't have that same.
It's in there, but it's
symbolic impact.
No.
As we did in the house.
And the moment that I miss most of all is him having the mom and dad frozen in the ray and hearing the sound of the baby and going, and moving down the hall towards the baby's room with mom and dad floating in the air, and they're unable to do anything about that. I think we made the right decision in terms of what's in the movie, what the movie is. I don't think we made a mistake, but I miss those aspects of this moment. And there was a particular feeling that I got from that we don't have that feeling. We have a lot of good feelings in the movie, but we don't have that specific one, and I kind of wish that we did. Snug was actually in the original pitch, and the idea was that I wanted to know that the villains are serious, and that if you get caught in their crossfire, there's going to be a price paid. So I had a friend, Snug Porter was his name, and he was a friend of Helen's from the old days, and the idea was that he took her to her missions. He was her pilot. That was the original idea.
For those superheroes who can't fly.
For those superheroes who can't fly and have to go to different parts of the world, you got to be, you got to be taken and dropped and all that stuff.
Snug, I'm calling in a solid, Omi.
About time. What's it been? 15 years? I was starting to get comfortable. What do you need?
A jet. What can you get that's fast?
Let me think.
So for the longest time, Snug flew the plane. And the problem with Snug is that you had to introduce him. You couldn't kill him right off the bat because then you don't feel anything.
Right.
So then you had to commit to giving him screen time. And the more screen time you gave to him to make you care about him so that it was painful when he died, the more time you're eating up in the movie.
I haven't asked.
And I appreciate it.
Old friends don't need to.
No.
Because they trust each other.
That's right.
All those missions we flew, it's unspoken.
Absolutely.
Fly you to some curiously uncharted island without even wondering why.
You are true blue.
That's the kind of guy I am.
I love that about you.
Because I'd fly you anywhere.
I know you would.
Yeah, even if you weren't having marriage problems.
Snug!
Is it bad?
I don't know.
What's your instinct tell you?
Prepare for the worst.
Yeah, I'd trust it.
fairly early on, it was suggested that you make Helen the pilot. In fact, I think that was John's suggestion, is make Helen, and I I've thought of that, and no, I'm not going to make Helen the pilot because Helen can't die, and somebody's got to die and pay a price, and John would go, okay, it's your movie, batten off, but I'm telling you, and so I fought it, and pretty soon, just down in the editing room, I got to get it down, and I am looking for cuts, and I know, and it's the worst when you want something, but you just got no leg to stand on.
Right.
And it happened on Iron Giant too.
It did.
There were certain things that I had to let go of that I didn't want to let go of, and for about a week, it's like expelling what are those painful things? And I've never had one. What are they?
Kidney stone.
Yeah. That's what it was like for me emotionally, because I didn't want to let go of this, and I know that I have to, and but once we got it out, it not only saved us screen time, which we needed for things that were more important, but it enabled us to make Helen the pilot, which I think amped up Missile Lock, because now she's in charge of her family. And I'm very happy with that sequence.
One of the most intense sequences in the movie, I think.
Yeah, and I think that it wasn't, to be honest, it wasn't as intense when it was Snug.
Right.
Yeah.
This is nuts. Somebody's going to hear about this. They shouldn't be conducting test shots. Island Tower, India Golf 909er transmitting on the blind guard. Disengage over, disengage. Think I'm not trying? Knock it off! Knock it off! India Golf 909ers Buddy Spike. Friendlies 15 miles south. Abort! Abort!
We need to do something! Buddy, you have to put a force field around the plane. But you said we weren't supposed to use our power!
I know what I said. Listen to what I'm saying now.
Bravo. Disengage! Disengage!
Mom!
Violet!
Abort! Abort! Women and children aboard! Say again, women and children aboard!
Put a field around us now! I've never done one that big before!
Violet, do it now!
Abort! Abort! Abort!
I'll tell you what we're not gonna do. We're not gonna panic, and we're not— Look out!
Oh my God! Whose idea was this anyway? We're dead! We're dead! Oh my God! Oh my God! We survived, but we're dead! Stop it! We are not gonna die. Now both of you will get a grip, or so help me, I will ground you for a month. Understand?
What about the pilot?
This was a strange sequence because it wasn't like a schematic thing. It was more like an emotional thing, like this needs some moment. We need to see the bad guys, but see them in an impersonal way, because that makes them even more bad in a way.
Right.
But so the idea was that the ship would go down and we would cut to Bob hearing these things take off, so that you also connected it with Bob. But the idea that you show them coming out over the wreckage almost like vultures. I mean, when we talked about designing these things, we wanted to make them kind of like predatory birds, carrion birds. And the idea was that you would show them going over the debris field on the water very dispassionately and just saying, no survivors, da-da-da-da.
Debris field all clear, no survivors.
But having them form themselves into the raft and start heading for the island and then having to stop while these guys came over them. Structure-wise, I understood perfectly that it was a bumpy structure. But it always felt right to me emotionally, and I was sorry to see it go. But when we lost it, we lost one of my favorite shots in the movie, which was the family hiding underwater as these vipers went over.
Right.
But when we took it off the plate of everybody, you know, so many people were relieved because we had underwater hair simulation and all this stuff that's hard to do.
Right.
And it's like you could just feel the beast of The Incredibles go when that was taken out. But we even animated one scene in it.
Who were those guys? Were those the bad guys? Mom?
Yes, honey.
Wait a minute, stop. Are you saying that Dad is working for the bad guys?
Of course not.
Then what's going on?
We're gonna find out.
In my ideal version, I would have that scene back.
Wait a minute. I think I saw something. Viper 2, break 6-5 and check it out, over. Viper 2 to Viper 1, sweep negative, all clear. Viper 2 proceeding to debris field. This is Viper 1. Debris field all clear. No survivors. Returning to base.
Who were those guys? Were those bad guys? Mom?
Yes, honey.
Wait a minute, stop. Are you saying that Dad is working for the bad guys?
Of course not.
Then what's going on?
We're gonna find out.
The idea was that you're showing a guy who is frustrated that he can't do more, and that his instinct is to confront crime and to intervene on behalf of protecting, you know, the citizenry. And he's in this job where he can barely help people through forms and
the red tape of this industry.
Yeah.
Right.
So the idea was to do something physical, have him see trouble almost, you know, that the cops can't handle it, and then just be going, hey, we're all one part of the team, and having the cops not see it that way, and like, get back in your car, sir.
I'm just here to help. I don't mean to...
Return to your vehicle, sir.
And him actually getting angry at the cops for not being grateful that he's helped them. I think that it was a good scene, but I also think that we had other scenes that were doing that job.
Right.
And it's one of those things that you do in an early draft.
Right.
That you realize that you have you're carrying that weight in other places.
Oh, that's sweet. Hey! What's your hurry, pal? You may be able to shake the cops, but... Evening, officers. I found this piece of...
Police business, sir. Please return to your vehicle.
Hey, I'm just here to help. I don't mean to...
Return to your vehicle, sir, now.
Hey, listen, buddy.
There a problem here, Ken? Sir?
The traffic's moving again, pal! Get back in your car and drive, idiot!
No.
Helen is suspicious that Bob, their marriage, infidelity, comes together in this one scene.
Some people always felt that it could work. Other people felt like, what the heck is this doing in a Pixar movie? And I felt like there was a tasteful way to handle it so that it would be apparent to people who were older and not necessarily apparent to younger kids. And I think that even if you're doing a fantasy, you should try to bring in some things about real life, you know. And it's not only good dramatically, or you know, but it's kind of funny, you know. It's funny that we are fragile creatures and we screw up and we are insecure, and to have superheroes that are have these amazing abilities and yet have the same insecurities that all of us do is interesting to me. So it was a little more direct than it is now. And you know, it had some lines that I'm sorry that we don't have, but I think the version that we have now is the best version.
Hey.
Hey, you.
Too loud? What's up, good looking?
Your suit was gone. Your Mr. Incredible suit? When you were on your trip, I vacuumed in here.
I had it cleaned. What, is there a problem?
Oh, yes. There is a problem, Bob. There's a problem on so many levels.
What?
One, that you would take out your Mr. Incredible suit when we were supposed to be in hiding.
No one suspected. I said it was for a costume
And
part.
two, that you actually want me to believe that right before your business trip you suddenly needed your super suit cleaned?
Wait a minute. Are you telling me I gotta start defending my laundry?
No, I'm saying I do it. The laundry is one of the many services I provide. If you had to have your suit
When
cleaned...
did you start loving laundry?
I do the laundry around here!
Did I miss something?
What's this?
Looks like hair.
Whose hair?
I don't know. Cleaners?
It's blonde.
It's white.
It's platinum blonde.
It's white old lady hair. The cleaners.
This is not old hair.
Why don't you ask what you want to ask?
Are you having an affair?
Yeah, me and the old lady. One look at her laundry and I had to have her. Are you nuts? I was feeling good about things for a change. Successful. I wanted to get the suit cleaned. Do you have to...
I'm sorry.
Can't you just... Oh, forget it.
Sometimes dream sequences are okay. All I know is the first pain reliever you reach for, you know, when
Is the dream.
Well, yeah, the fantasy sequence or the dream sequence, because basically you're looking for a way to say certain things, and the easiest way is to just say them in an abstract way that is not, you know, you don't have to work into your reality, and then have somebody go, you know what I mean?
That's exactly what we did.
Yeah,
That
that's right. Yeah, and they can be good.
Yes.
They have been
Yes.
good. There are films that have them. I'm not saying that it's always a bad idea, but I'm saying that usually I'm learning that they are an early solution that you use as kind of a Scotch tape measure to get an idea in a film that you don't have a better way of doing.
Right.
This one is like that, where she has some anxiety and it's very sort of baldly stated, and there's some funny ideas. But basically, I'm not sorry to be rid of it, you know.
I was one of the first ones to go.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
They always go first.
the adventures of Mr. Incredible with his pals Frozone and Mr. Skipperdoo. When last we left them, Mr. Incredible and Frozone had just discovered the startling disappearance of the West River Bridge.
Frozone, the disappearance of the West River Bridge is startling. What dastardly demon could have done such a dirty deed?
This is one wild scene, Big Daddy. What's up with Mr. Skipperdoo?
He's found something. A rivet from the missing bridge. And it's radioactive.
Radioactive? That's powerful goodness. But isn't that dangerous in the wrong hands?
Yes, and what pretty hands they are, for this is blue radioactivity, which can only be the work of one person, the sinister, yet lovely, Lady Lightbug.
Let's make like a banana and split.
Hold on there, Frozone. We can't leave this traffic piled up. There's nothing more important than keeping our country's automobiles on the go.
Well, this will get all those hep cats rolling for now. Cool it!
Amazing! You're constructing a temporary bridge of ice. I've never seen anything like it. Good job, old friend. Now let's go find Lady Lightbug.
With traffic flowing for now, our heroes embark on a search for their evil adversary.
How did you peg this as Lady Lightbug's pad?
Evil is attracted to dark, remote places, and this abandoned fairground is dark and remote.
Dig it, Daddy-O.
Well, she's not under this abandoned funhouse. And she's not under this abandoned shooting gallery. And she's not under this abandoned house of mirrors. What is it, Mr. Skipperdoo?
He's found the bridge.
The bridge? The bridge!
Yes, the bridge!
Lady Lightbug!
By stealing the world's bridges, I will create massive traffic jams. With the people of the earth unable to commute to work, the economies of the free world will crumble!
That's one crazy bug.
Radioactive silk!
And there is nothing you can do to stop me, Incredible!
You mean Mr. Incredible.
Your Ferris wheel attack is as pathetic and ineffective as your system of government!
Laugh now, Lightbug, for nothing can defeat the power of freedom. It's showtime!
The world is like crazy safe again, thanks to you, Mr. Incredible.
No, Frozone, thanks to you. And democracy. And of course you, Mr. Skipperdoo.
Hope you remembered to poke some holes in that jar.
Curse you, Mr. Incredible, and Frozone, and Mr. Skipperdoo!
Tune in next week for another amazing adventure.
I'll crush you, Mr. Incredible!
Starring the world's greatest super, Mr. Incredible!